I'll ruin you for this. I slammed the USB drive onto the conference table, making the executive board flinch as it skidded across polished mahogany. Marcus's perfect smile faltered for just a second before returning, more predatory than ever. The CEO's eyebrows shot up as shocked silence engulfed the room. 2 minutes ago, I'd been standing in the corner like a prop while Marcus delivered my presentation to the board, slide by slide. My research, my strategy, my words. My 6 months of sleepless nights, claimed by my mentor who'd sworn just yesterday. Tomorrow, you'll finally get the recognition you deserve. Alex, this is highly inappropriate, Marcus said, his Harvard-polished voice steady despite the flush creeping up his neck. Perhaps you should step outside. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound I barely recognized. Should I? Before or after you tell them whose strategy this actually is? My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, already recording. Or should I play the conversation from last night when you admitted stealing my work? The boardroom felt airless. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's skyline seemed suddenly distant and unreal. I'd sacrificed everything for this moment. Weekends, relationships, even my sister's wedding, all for Meridian marketing partners to see my value. The CEO, Barbara Winters, a steel-haired woman who'd built the company from nothing, held up one hand. That's enough. Both of you, sit down. That's when the text arrived. From Dave, my best friend since business school, the only person I'd trusted with early drafts of the project. You're making a scene. Stop now. Marcus promised me the VP spot if I helped him. You understand business. My phone nearly slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. Dave, my roommate, my confidant, the person who'd talked me through every doubt, who knew exactly how much this meant to me. I stared at the message, a cold realization washing over me. The betrayal wasn't just Marcus, it was everyone. The system itself. Alex, Barbara's voice cut through my thoughts. You've made a serious accusation. You better have proof. I do, I said, nodding toward the USB drive I'd flung onto the table, the one containing every original document, timestamp, and work log from the past 6 months. But there's something else you should hear first. I pressed play on my phone recording. Marcus's voice filled the room. Once I present Alex's strategy as mine, the VP position is guaranteed. The kid's brilliant but has no presence, state school education, wrong background. I'm doing him a favor by giving his ideas a chance. The color drained from Marcus's face as his own voice betrayed him. The board members exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others calculating. Dave appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with panic. And in that moment, surrounded by power players who'd never truly see me as an equal, I made a decision that would either destroy my career or remake it entirely. Hashtag the slow burn. He did what? Jenna's voice crackled through my phone as I paced the small stretch of hallway outside the conference rooms. As Barbara's executive assistant, she had access to everything at Meridian and a strong sense of justice I was counting on. Presented my entire project as his own, I said, keeping my voice low. Dave was in on it too. That two-faced, she stopped herself. The board meeting just ended. Barbara is heading back to her office. She seemed really impressed. The knife twisted deeper. Great. Alex, you need to tell her the truth, Jenna urged. I've seen your hours, the weekends you've put in. This isn't right. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. It's my word against Marcus Preston, Jenna. Harvard MBA, family connections, 5 years as Barbara's golden boy. Who do you think she'll believe? So you're just giving up? The disappointment in her voice stung. I didn't say that. I gripped my phone tighter. I recorded the meeting, and some conversations before it. The silence stretched for a moment. That's a nuclear option, Alex. You know how Barbara feels about loyalty. Is it loyalty when they steal from you? I asked quietly. When they take credit for your work and push you aside? Another pause. Be careful. Marcus has friends everywhere. As if summoned by her warning, Dave rounded the corner, his expression a careful mix of apology and determination. Alex, we need to talk. I have to go, I told Jenna, ending the call before turning to face him. What's there to talk about, Dave? He glanced around the empty hallway before stepping closer. Look, I know you're upset. Upset. I repeated, incredulous. You and Marcus stole 6 months of my life. We didn't steal anything, Dave hissed, his friendly facade cracking. This is how business works. Marcus needs this win for the executive position, and he'll bring us both up with him. Us both. I almost laughed. You really think he'll keep that promise? Something flickered in Dave's eyes. Doubt, maybe, before hardening again. Marcus recognizes talent. He sees the big picture. Right. My talent, your betrayal, his promotion. I stepped away from the wall. Tell me, how long have you been feeding him my work? Dave's face flushed. It wasn't like that. How was it then? He looked away. Marcus approached me 3 months ago. Said he'd noticed my potential. That we could help each other. By stealing my project. By being strategic, Alex. Dave's voice rose slightly before he caught himself. Look, you're good with numbers and research. But Marcus has the connections, the presence. He can actually make something happen with your ideas. I studied him. My friend of 7 years, the guy who'd crashed on my couch when he was broke, who'd been my first call when I got this job. You really believe that, don't you? It's just business, he repeated, softer now. Nothing personal. The elevator dinged nearby, disgorging a group of executives. Marcus among them, laughing at something, riding the high of his stolen success. Our eyes met briefly over Dave's shoulder. His smile never faltered, but something predatory passed through his gaze before he turned and led his admirers toward the executive wing. You're wrong, I told Dave, pocketing my phone. It's all personal. By late afternoon, the champagne had appeared in Marcus's office. I could hear the celebratory voices through the walls of my much smaller workspace as I systematically copied files from my computer to an encrypted drive. Not company property, just my original drafts, timestamps, research notes. Evidence. My desk phone rang, startling me. Marcus's extension. Alex, join us. His voice was expansive, magnanimous in victory. The team should celebrate together. The team. As if we'd collaborated. As if he hadn't stolen everything. I'm actually wrapping up some details, I replied, forcing lightness into my tone. Maybe in a bit. Don't be like that, Marcus chided. This is a win for all of us. Barbara is already talking about expanding the department. I could picture him, lounging in his corner office with its views of Central Park, basking in attention he hadn't earned. Congratulations, I managed. 1 hour, Marcus said. My office. That's an order from your soon-to-be VP. He chuckled and hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, then at my computer screen where I'd pulled up my original project brief, dated 6 months earlier. The document that proved everything. The sick feeling in my stomach was giving way to something harder, colder. My cell phone vibrated with a text from Jenna, Barbara free at 5. Say the word. I looked at the time, for 23 p.m. A plan was forming, but I needed to be smart. This wasn't just about exposing a theft. It was about survival in an industry where reputation was everything. If I misplayed this, I'd be the troublemaker, the disgruntled employee who couldn't handle the corporate game. I'll be there, I texted back, then reached for my laptop bag and began packing up. Not just for the meeting, for whatever came after. The champagne laughter from Marcus's office grew louder. I heard Dave's voice among them, already assimilated into the inner circle. My hand hovered over the framed photo on my desk. My graduation from state, the only one in my family to finish college, my parents beaming with pride beside me. I'd come to New York to prove myself, to show that talent and hard work mattered more than connections and pedigree. How naive that seemed now. I slipped the photo into my bag alongside the evidence of my stolen work. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't forget why I started this journey or what I was truly worth. Hashtag the confrontation. The executive floor was quieter than the rest of the building, the carpet thicker, the lighting more flattering. Barbara's corner office occupied the prime position, with views in 2 directions and a private conference room attached. The door was open when I arrived, exactly at 5 p.m. Jenna looked up from her desk and gave me a small nod. She's expecting you, she said, loud enough for Barbara to hear, then mouthed silently. Are you sure? I nodded once, gripping my laptop bag tighter as I stepped into the CEO's domain. Barbara Winters wasn't what most people expected from a CEO. In her early 60s, she dressed simply but expensively, more interested in competence than flash. She'd built Meridian from a 3-person shop to a marketing powerhouse through sheer force of will and uncanny instincts about market trends. People feared her judgment but respected her fairness. Alex, she said, looking up from her computer. This is unexpected. Jenna said you needed 5 minutes. Thank you for making the time, I said, closing the door behind me. My heart hammered, but my voice remained steady. Barbara gestured to a chair. I was impressed with the presentation today. Fresh approach to the Reynolds account. It was, I agreed, sitting down but not unpacking my laptop yet. That's actually why I'm here. She raised an eyebrow, waiting. Deep breath. That strategy wasn't Marcus's work. It was mine. I'd been developing it for 6 months. Barbara's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. That's a serious accusation, Alex. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I finally unzipped my bag and removed my laptop. I have all the original documents, research logs, drafts, everything with timestamps and edit histories. Her gaze flicked to the computer, then back to me. Marcus is one of my most trusted executives. I know, I said simply. That's why he could do this. Barbara leaned back slightly. And Dave Mitchell? I understood he contributed as well. They've had access to my early drafts. We've been friends since business school. The betrayal still stung, fresh and raw. Friends, she repeated, a wealth of understanding in the word. Why bring this to me directly? Why not HR? It was a test, and we both knew it. Because this isn't just about credit, I said carefully. The strategy one developed is sound. It will work for Reynolds. The company should use it. Something like surprise flickered across Barbara's face. I care about the work, I continued. And I want you to know who actually did it. What happens next is your decision. For a long moment, Barbara studied me, her expression unreadable. Then she reached for her desk phone. Jenna, hold my calls. And find Marcus, please. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Winters. She held up a hand. If what you're saying is true, I need to hear both sides. Right now. The next 15 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat silently as Barbara reviewed my evidence, the original files, the progression of the strategy, email exchanges where I discussed early concepts. Her face revealed nothing. When the knock finally came, Barbara called, "Enter." Marcus strode in, confidence personified, then stopped short when he saw me. "Barbara, I was on my way out to dinner with the Reynolds team to celebrate." "Sit down, Marcus," Barbara said, her tone making it clear this wasn't optional. As he slowly took the seat beside me, I could feel the calculations running behind his eyes, trying to assess the situation. I kept my gaze on Barbara. "Alex has brought some concerning information to my attention," she said, turning her monitor so Marcus could see the screen displaying my original project brief dated months earlier. "He claims the Reynolds strategy is his work, not yours." Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Alex contributed some initial research, certainly. As a superior, I guided the direction and developed the final strategy we presented today." "That's not true," I said quietly. Marcus turned to me, his expression a perfect mix of disappointment and concern. "Alex, I know you put in hours on this. Your contribution was valuable. But transforming raw data into an actionable strategy, that requires experience and vision." "Experience and vision," I repeated, reaching for my phone. "Like when you told Dave last week, and I quote, 'Alex's strategy is brilliant, but the board will never buy it coming from him?'" Marcus froze. I placed my phone on Barbara's desk and played the recording. Marcus's voice filled the room. "Look, Dave, Alex's strategy is brilliant, but the board will never buy it coming from him. He's a nobody from nowhere with a state school degree. I'm doing him a favor by giving these ideas a chance to actually happen. We all win." Dave's voice, uncertain. "I don't know, Marcus. He worked really hard on this. And he'll get a nice bonus. But this is business. Now, I need those final projections he showed you before tomorrow's run-through." I stopped the recording. The silence in the office was absolute. Marcus recovered first. "That's taken completely out of context. And recording conversations without consent is against company policy, probably illegal. New York is a one-party consent state," I said. "And there's more if you'd like to hear it." Barbara held up a hand. "That won't be necessary." She looked between us, her expression hardening. "Marcus, wait outside. Tell Jenna to call legal." "Barbara, you can't seriously." "Now, Marcus." For the first time, I saw Marcus's perfect facade crack. Fear flashed across his features before he stood stiffly and left the office. When the door closed, Barbara turned to me. "You've put me in a difficult position, Alex." "I know," I said, "and I'm sorry for that part, but not for standing up for my work." She studied me for a long moment. "The presentation impressed our largest client today. If what you're saying is true, that was your doing." "It was. Yet you sat silently while someone else took credit." I met her gaze. I was shocked. I trusted Marcus. And Dave. I didn't want to create a scene in front of the board and the client. "So you created one in my office instead," she noted, but without heat. "I brought evidence to the CEO. Privately." I hesitated, then added, I respect this company too much to let this go. Barbara nodded slowly, seeming to come to a decision. I'll need time to review everything thoroughly. Legal will want to speak with you. My heart sank. This was how it would happen. A slow bureaucratic process that would eventually bury the truth. Of course. In the meantime, she continued, I think it's best if you take a few days off. With pay. And there it was, the beginning of my exit. I'd be investigated, then quietly let go for policy violations or some other pretext. Marcus would survive with a slap on the wrist. I'd be blacklisted. I stood, gathering my laptop. I understand. Do you? Barbara asked, surprising me. Because I'm not sure you do, Alex. Taking credit for others' work is something I take extremely seriously, as is recording conversations without disclosure. Both reflect on character and judgment. I nodded, unsure what to say. The Reynolds account is worth $40 million annually to this company, she said. The strategy presented today may well grow that to $60 million. I need to be certain whose work I'm betting on. The evidence is clear, I said quietly. Yes, she agreed. It is. But corporate decisions are rarely just about evidence, are they? Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. Take the days off, Alex. We'll speak again next week. It felt like dismissal and something else I couldn't quite identify. I nodded once more and turned to leave. And Alex. Barbara called as I reached the door. Don't delete those recordings. Hashtag the aftermath. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I'd been escorted from the building on Friday evening, my badge temporarily deactivated as a standard procedure during an investigation, according to the HR representative who watched me pack my essential belongings. Marcus was nowhere to be seen during my exit, though I caught glimpses of others watching. Some curious, some concerned, a few with something like respect in their eyes. Jenna had texted me Saturday morning. Storm at the top. Stay strong. Nothing since. Dave had called repeatedly, then sent increasingly desperate texts ranging from anger. You recorded us? What the fuck, Alex? To pleading, just talk to me. We can fix this. To threatening, you have no idea who you're messing with. Marcus has friends everywhere. I'd responded to none of them. By Monday evening, my apartment felt like a prison. Every LinkedIn notification made my heart race, wondering if news of my professional suicide had begun to spread through the industry. I drafted and deleted multiple job application emails, uncertain how to explain my sudden availability without burning the bridges I just dynamited. Tuesday morning, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Alex Foster. My voice sounded strange even to myself. Mr. Foster, this is Elaine Cho from Winners Enterprise Holdings, the formal parent company of Meridian and several other firms Barbara had acquired over the years. Mrs. Winners would like to meet with you today at 2 p.m. At the Holdings office, not Meridian. My grip tightened on the phone. May I ask what this is regarding? Mrs. Winters prefers to discuss that in person, Elaine replied smoothly. The address is 745 5th Avenue, 32nd floor. Please come alone. The call ended before I could ask more questions. I spent the next 3 hours alternating between preparing for the worst and daring to hope for something better. The Winters Holdings office wasn't where employees were taken to be fired. That was HR's domain at Meridian proper. But it also wasn't where good news typically originated. At precisely 1:58 p.m., I stepped off the elevator onto the 32nd floor, dressed in my best suit and carrying the same laptop bag that had contained the evidence of my stolen work. The Holdings reception area was minimalist and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of Central Park. Mr. Foster, the receptionist, greeted me as if she'd been waiting. Mrs. Winters is ready for you. I was led not to an office, but to a small conference room where Barbara sat alone, reviewing documents. She looked up as I entered, her expression giving nothing away. Thank you for coming, Alex. Please, sit. I took the chair across from her, my mouth suddenly dry. Thank you for the invitation. Barbara set aside her papers and regarded me directly. The past few days have been illuminating. I've reviewed all your evidence, spoken with Marcus and Dave separately, and consulted with our legal team. She paused. You were right. The Reynolds strategy was entirely your work. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by wariness. And Marcus has been terminated, effective immediately. Dave has been placed on probation and transferred to our Seattle office. I blinked, stunned. I didn't expect that. Clearly, Barbara said, with the hint of a smile. You expected to be the one terminated. It crossed my mind, I admitted. It crossed mine as well, she said frankly. Recording conversations without disclosure is problematic, as I mentioned. But in this case, the evidence was necessary to expose a far more serious ethical breach. I nodded, still processing. What happens now? Barbara leaned forward slightly. That's why I asked you here, Alex. I have a proposition for you. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was an employment contract, not for Meridian Marketing Partners, but for Winters Holdings directly. You have talent, drive, and apparently a moral backbone, a rare combination, Barbara said as I scanned the document. The position is Senior Strategy Director, reporting directly to me. You'd oversee project development across our portfolio companies, including Meridian. The salary figure made me blink. It was nearly triple my current compensation. Why? I asked, looking up. Why not just reinstate me at Meridian? Because you don't belong there anymore, Barbara said simply. You've outgrown it. And frankly, after what happened, your position there would be complicated. She wasn't wrong. I'd be forever known as the whistleblower who brought down Marcus Preston. Some would respect me, others would never trust me. There's something else you should know, Barbara continued. Reynolds was impressed enough with Marcus's presentation to increase their contract by $15 million. They're expecting the architect of that strategy to lead the implementation. Understanding dawned. They're expecting Marcus. Barbara nodded. Who is no longer with the company? I need someone who actually understands the strategy to step in immediately. I looked down at the contract again. This isn't just about doing the right thing, is it? This is damage control. It's business, Alex. Everything is damage control or opportunity exploitation. Sometimes both at once. Barbara's expression softened slightly. But yes, this particular decision serves multiple purposes. Justice happens to align with business interests in this case. I thought about Marcus's stolen presentation, about Dave's betrayal, about my own naivety in believing talent alone would be recognized. And if it hadn't aligned? If the strategy had been mediocre? Then we'd be having a very different conversation, Barbara admitted. But it wasn't mediocre. It was exceptional work that deserved recognition, and now it will get it. She tapped the contract, along with the resources to make it even more successful. The offer was everything I'd worked for. More, even. But doubt lingered. What about recording conversations? My problematic methods. Barbara leaned back. Let me tell you something about success, Alex. The methods that get you noticed aren't always the ones that keep you valuable. Your strategy was brilliant. Your evidence gathering was necessary but concerning. I'm betting the former is your true character and the latter was situational desperation. She was giving me an out. A way to frame my actions as a one-time lapse rather than a defining trait. Is that a winning bet? I asked. I rarely make losing ones, Barbara replied. But that's ultimately up to you, isn't it? I looked down at the contract once more, then back at the woman who'd built an empire by recognizing value others missed. I'd like to review this with my lawyer. Barbara smiled, a real smile this time. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Take the week. The offer stands until Monday. I stood, tucking the contract into my bag. Thank you for the opportunity. And for listening in the first place. Thank you for having the courage to speak up, she replied. That's rarer than you might think. As I turned to leave, she added, Oh, and Alex? The Reynolds team is expecting an update call tomorrow at 10 a.m. They're quite eager to speak with the brilliant strategist behind the proposal. For the first time in days, I felt myself smile. I'll be ready. Hashtag the new chapter 1 year later. I stood at the window of my 30th floor office in the Winters Holdings building, watching the Manhattan skyline glow in the late afternoon sun. On my desk, a framed photo from my state school graduation sat beside a newer one. Me with Barbara at the Meridian Marketing Excellence Awards, accepting recognition for the Reynolds campaign that had now grown their business by 34%, exceeding even my ambitious projections. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Jenna, now my executive assistant after following me from Meridian, leaned in. Your 4 o'clock is here. Send him in, I said, moving to my desk. Dave Mitchell looked different from when I'd last seen him a year ago. Seattle's weather had robbed some of his New York tan, and his designer suit had been replaced by something more subdued. His confidence, too, seemed dimmed as he hesitantly entered my office. Alex, he said, extending his hand. Thanks for seeing me. I shook it briefly, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. How's Seattle treating you? It's an adjustment. He glanced around my office, taking in the view, the award, the obvious signs of my new status. Congratulations on all this. I always knew you had it in you. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Dave shifted uncomfortably. Look, Alex, I know I can't undo what happened, but I've learned from it. I've worked hard to rebuild my reputation at the Seattle office. I've heard, I said neutrally. Your team's numbers have been solid. Hope flickered in his eyes. So you've been keeping tabs? I oversee all strategy divisions now, I reminded him. Your reports cross my desk quarterly. Right. Dave leaned forward. That's actually why I asked for this meeting. My probation period ends next month, and I was hoping, well, I'd like to come back to New York. Of course he did. Seattle might be a thriving tech hub, but in marketing, New York was still the center of the universe. I understand everyone deserves a second chance, Dave continued, rehearsed but earnest. I betrayed your trust, and I've regretted it every day. But we were friends once, Alex. Good friends. I'm asking for an opportunity to prove myself again, to you and to the company. A year ago, those words might have moved me. Now they simply felt strategic. Dave playing his best card, appealing to our history and my potential sympathy. There's no opening in the New York office at your level, I said. I'd take a step down, he offered quickly, or a lateral move to a different division. I studied him, wondering if he truly understood what had happened between us. Not just the betrayal, but the fundamental misjudgment. Dave had sacrificed our friendship for a promise from Marcus, a promise that evaporated the moment Marcus's deception was exposed. Why did you do it, Dave? I asked, the question I'd wanted to ask for a year. We were friends for 7 years. He looked down. Marcus was convincing. He said he could make my career, that I'd never get noticed otherwise, that neither of us would. He met my eyes again. He said talent wasn't enough in this business, that we needed his connections, his polish. And you believed him? Yes, Dave admitted. I did. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus had been right in one respect. Talent alone hadn't been enough. It had taken evidence, courage, and Barbara's personal interest to overcome the system that favored people like Marcus. But Dave had chosen the wrong side of that equation, backing the facade over the substance. The Seattle office has an opening for Director of Digital Strategy next quarter, I said finally. Your background would be a good fit, and it's a step up from your current position. Dave's expression fell slightly. So, not New York. Not New York, I confirmed, but a genuine opportunity to advance. He hesitated, then nodded. I appreciate that, Alex. Really? As he stood to leave, I added, the position reports directly to the VP of West Coast Operations. She values loyalty and gives credit where it's due. I think you could do well there, if you've truly learned from what happened. I have, Dave said quickly. And thank you. When he reached the door, I called after him. Dave? He turned back. Success isn't just about who you know or where you went to school, I said. It's about creating real value and having the integrity to stand by your work. Remember that, and you might not need anyone else's connections. After he left, I turned back to the window, watching the city shift from afternoon to evening. My phone buzzed with an email from Barbara, the final approval for my proposal to restructure Meridian's creative team, elevating several talented mid-level employees who'd been overlooked in the old regime. The recording that had saved my career and exposed Marcus was still saved in an encrypted folder on my personal drive. I hadn't needed to make another since. As Barbara had predicted, that desperate measure had been situational, not definitional, a tool I'd used when nothing else would serve, then set aside. The work spoke for itself now, and this time, everyone knew whose voice it carried. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.